Welcome into the increasingly inaccurately called monthly update. I was looking back through the last time we did this to go for the slides, and it's I think 4 months. 4 months since we've done the update, so apologies there. Just leaves me to say hello to everyone that tune in. I don't think you can tune in really to a video on YouTube. Clicks in. Hello to my mum. Hello to Jason Isaacs. And hello to any listeners that we've got left, since we only do our monthly update once every 4 months. We are in our new building, so part of the reason that there's been a big gap is the move. Another reason is that I was in Iraq overseeing our preparations for the Mosul response. And it has been ridiculously busy of late with Hurricane Matthew and other things, but let's get into that. So there's our title slide. That's what's one of our big focuses at the moment, is the attack on Mosul, but more of that later. And later is now. Yeah, that shows I should have done more research on my slide order. But anyway, Mosul is being attacked. It had been telegraphed for quite some time that it was going to be attacked, which was a little bit puzzling, but Islamic State's capital, Raqqa, is also being attacked at the same time, and there's much less publicity on that. My theory is that they're trying to stretch it out onto two fronts, and declaring Mosul publicly as being where it was going to be attacked would split their forces and make it more easy to attack Islamic State in its capital and also in its second city of Mosul. Now, the Iraq response has been going on for quite some time. One, with the displacement of people inside Iraq, with violence associated with the aftermath of the Gulf War and the disturbances since then, and also moving aid into Syria across the border with Iraq. The huge numbers of people displaced in this part of the world from Syria and Iraq itself. We're working with ACTED at the moment, which is a very successful partnership. I think ACTED is now an actual name, but it used to stand for, it's a French acronym for I think it's the Association for Technical Development, things like that. That's the map as it stood earlier this week, with the yellow representing the Kurdish forces advancing, and they are pretty much stopped now because there's an agreement as to limiting what territory the Kurds now take back, and the Iraqi forces are now advancing with the help of Shia militia. There's a big political and sort of cultural mix going on here. You've got the Kurds, the Sunnis, the Shias, and various other shades in between. I won't pretend to even know that much detail, but I do know that the Sunni population of Mosul will have, there's tensions with the liberating forces being Shia. There's also the issue with Sunnis being in Kurd territory. The UN are setting up camps in Kurdish territory, but if Mosul falls rapidly, there's over 1 million people could come out of Mosul, which would be a huge number of people. So we've been invited or requested to come in by the shelter cluster to provide a surge capacity for what is going on in Mosul should everything go really wrong and 1 million people come streaming out of Mosul. At present, as you can see from the 4th of November, which is just a few days ago, pretty much the advancing forces in green are on the outskirts of Mosul and have started to move into the outer suburbs. This has completely slowed down now, understandably, because it's now urban warfare, and ISIS have known they've been coming for a while. There's about 34,000 internally displaced people that have got away from Mosul and the surrounding villages, but there are stories of ISIS rounding up entire villages and shipping off or marching off the inhabitants of the village or town into Mosul itself to use them as human shields to prevent the advance of their opposing forces. So it's a pretty grim situation. What we've been doing over the years and months is we've got 1,600 shelter kits purchased to help with people coming over the border from Syria, also coming out of the fighting within Iraq. We then, as we moved into a third phase, which is the phase we're talking about, which is the overspill, the overcapacity of the refugees that could come in, and they'll be kept in collective centres, so they can be processed and proper admin been done. They'll previously been screened to make sure that there's no ISIS fighters trying to get out within the population, but there's this big buffer where the camps in Kurdish control, Kurdish territory, can only take refugees at a certain rate, and that will build up this backlog of internally displaced people, and that's where we come in to provide that overcapacity. Today being what is the date today? I think it's about the 11th. It's about the 10th of November. I think, yes, 10th of November. And what's happening today is that the team go in for a few weeks and try and find out what the situation is, push things on, try and see what's going on, because at the moment the UN are coping with the outflux of people, the rate that they're coming out. But we've just been notified actually this morning that ACTED were trying to distribute about 400 of our tents in a region to the north of Mosul for families that had come out of Mosul. We're on team changeover, but that venture by ACTED was called off earlier today due to mortar fire in the area. So we are quite close to the front lines in our operations there. So we've got a new team going in the very near future. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to tell you when and where. But they will be working with ACTED to oversee the distributions, do train the trainer, and ensure that those tents are being maintained. So stand by on that one. I'm even going to pretend that we're going to do a monthly update, so I'll tell you about it next month, but we all know that might be in jeopardy. So that's what's happening. I nearly forgot that 399 UN tents are with the Kurdish government in Duhok, and we believe that 200 of those tents are being distributed, and the team will also be chasing that up as well. The Iraq response doesn't quite fit our model. Our tents are not designed for long-term desert use. From our experiences in Iraq, the sand and the sun take quite a toll on the tents. They take a toll on all the tents, and ours, they last about, well, we reckon about 7 or 8 months, which isn't that long in a situation like this in the desert. So we are also shipping tarpaulins to put over the top of the tent, which will act as like a sacrificial layer, so the sun and the sand can rip that to bits, and they will basically it's a £10 tarp instead of a £200 tent, and it will make it last a lot longer. So we're trying to adapt to these situations. So we'll let you know if that gets on. But the UN tents were originally placed into Iraq for the Syria response, hence they were the UN tents, so they could blend in with everybody else's, so it wouldn't target our beneficiaries from being one side or the other if they were in our tents. But those UN tents are going on. That's what the team will be doing. Also doesn't fit our deployment model, this permanent presence in an ongoing sort of situation. Our model is disaster. We go in, we stabilize, we try and promote the recovery of the individuals that have got the tents and shelter kits, and then we come out. That's our model. This long-term protracted crisis is something relatively new because of the state of the world, but we're adapting our model, and we go in, have the meetings, get our partners pointing in the right direction, liaise with them, and then when things hot up, we will then put our presence in. So we dip in, dip out, and the new team's going in the near future. Hurricane Matthew, which happened for probably about a month ago now, probably about 5-6 weeks maybe. Hurricane Matthew went ploughing through the bottom of the Caribbean and then did a very sharp right-hand turn and hit Haiti, unfortunately, and it caused about 1,000 deaths in Haiti. It then went on with the same strength to hit the Bahamas, and there was very few deaths, if at all, there. And that shows you the vulnerability of Haiti. Haiti's still recovering from the earthquake in 2010, where tens of thousands of people were killed. And it's a very poor country. It's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, so its rebound rates aren't great, and the poverty is extreme there. So they have some incredible vulnerabilities. Now, we managed to have our boxes stored there with the International Organization for Migration, and also we had our boxes stored with the Dutch Navy down in an island called Curacao, just off the South American coast. The Dutch Navy had to get permission, so they were a few days getting our boxes and tents into Haiti. But they did it, thank goodness. But we're also faced with the secondary issue that the Haitian government is very, very strongly guiding the way this response is going, and they do not want boxes and tents. They just categorically, we tried to find various ways around it, categorically no boxes, tents at home site will be allowed. Now, we've done some limited distributions to do with medical. I mean, you can go to the website, and I think there's some stories on the distributions that have gone on there, but the aid world has moved on. Boxes and tents are not, the favoured item in some of the areas, and Haiti being one of them. I think this comes from the fact that they had very, very large tented camps that were set up after the earthquake, and they stagnated. People didn't move on, so there's big issues with these tented areas becoming slums. And as the tents fall apart, it gave the Haitian government and the aid agencies a big headache. So tents and of course boxes, not the thing. So we have shelter kits stored in Panama. We've got shelter kits coming from the UK, and we've got them coming in via Dubai across the other side of the island, which is the Dominican Republic. And we are intending to do distributions with an outfit called 410 Bridge, who are local, and they're trying to do distributions just north of Le Quay in that red area. And we've got distributions planned with Handicap International in the blue area, which is on the north coast around Nice. The issues with this is that the tensions on that lower, they call it the crab claw for obvious reasons, on that lower crab claw is very, very high. They have cholera outbreaks, there's a lack of clean drinking water, there's a lack of food down there, 90% destruction has been reported around Les Anglais, and it's quite a volatile nation. So there's some security issues, and we're working with local agencies to manage and mitigate those security issues, but we can't have teams out on the ground all of the time, because they become a focal point and it attracts unwanted attention. So we're working with the local partnerships to be there for as much as we can, and then do limited distributions and move around. Now, the 410 Bridge, it'd be interesting to see in a month's time whether that's worked out, because we're having some issues with them, but we might slant our operations onto Handicap International for the, they were going to do 1,000 shelter kits, and at 410 Bridge we're going to do 2,000, but we might end up doing all 3,000 with Handicap International. There is the issue of corrugated iron for roofing. We might augment the shelter kit with that. And we also might have to buy some lumber, because there's not a lot of lateral lumber in Haiti as it's been deforested. Very complicated. And add on top of that an election, which was postponed due to the hurricane, is now scheduled for 10 days' time. And things can get a little bit violent around the election. So again, another security issue for the team to think about. Might pull the team out, might leave them in. We'll just have to gauge it day by day. And at the moment, we're gauging it street by street with our operations down in Le Quay. So that's ongoing. We're hoping to do 3,000 shelter kits, maybe more. The challenges are the security situation. We really are operating on the outer edge of what our mitigations can permit. That's what we've done so far with the Department of Health. As I've said, we have to do the medical aspects. The other interesting thing to throw on top of that is some of those tents have been in storage for over 5 years. So how useful they're going to be, we're going to have to get an admin team in there to have a look at those tents and see if they're up to the job. And then we're going to have to figure out where we're going to send them, because Haiti doesn't want boxes and tents. So that's something else. But I'd like to pay tribute to the volunteers that are on that deployment right now, because they really are working right at the edge of what is possible with with a volunteer team or even a staff team, with the security and the complications and the politics of it all. I'm really proud to be part of what they're doing out there. They really are an impressive bunch of people. So I won't read out the slide, but there you go. That's what we're doing with all of the peripheral distributions of boxes and tents, with Rotary are helping there. Rotary are helping with our warehousing needs, because warehousing is at a premium. And when it first kicked off, the World Food Programme warehouses were saying that you need to get your kit out in 2 days, which is a little bit of a logistics challenge. Right, finally moving on, Syria. Kind of links back to our first sort of deployment of this presentation, which is the Iraq. The other side of that is Syria. Aleppo being pounded by the Russians and the government air force. It's been basically cut off from the outside world, and it's too dangerous for our partners to work in Aleppo anymore. Distributions of equipment has been going on in Hasaka, and there was distributions of shelter kits in northern Syria ongoing. We did have some shelter kits that were destined to go into Aleppo itself, and they've been diverted into the countryside around Idlib, due to the fact that you just can't get into Aleppo. In fact, if I go back, this year alone, we've done 4,650 households inside Syria, and that's using our partners Hand in Hand Syria and Relief Aid. As if you're a regular listener, you will know that we made the decision early on that our risk appetite just doesn't capture putting our volunteers or staff into Syria, because it's just outside of our capabilities and outside of our risk. And with some agencies having their people captured and killed, I think it's the right decision. I think it's still the right decision, and it's not one I can see changing anytime soon. But I was rooting around trying to think of my facts, and I found this graph, which is the distributions that ShelterBox has done through its partners and ourselves on our own, to do with the Syria conflict since 2012. And you can see those graphs, how the operations have peaked and troughed as Iraq has calmed down and then got worse and then calmed down again, and Lebanon being useful, and then it being moved on from Lebanon as they closed their borders, because last time I checked, their population was 25% were refugees, which is considerable. And there you can see how, as our pipelines into Syria and our partners have become more trusted and more efficient, we've managed to ramp up our operations in Syria. And I think the next one is going to be Iraq's going to start peaking dramatically as Mosul develops. There are some grisly scenarios where there isn't a peak because there are no internally displaced people, because they've all been killed by ISIS. But I don't want to dwell on that. I hope that those tents will be used, because the best thing they've got going for them at the moment is the chance to actually flee. And having spent a couple of weeks out there, the countryside that they're going to have to escape through, even in peacetime, is unforgiving. I mean, it is rock, it is desert, it's scrub. In the winter, it gets down to about +2, +3, even colder than that, and it can be wet and cold and really formidable conditions to survive in. And during the summer, it can get over 40 degrees, utterly dry, zero humidity whatsoever. So really grim conditions. And there's a little sweet spot between autumn and another one in spring where it's pleasant, but we're past that now. So Syria. Then we were talking about the Idlib countryside distributions, and here we have it, the 440 of 2,000 shelter kits, which were originally planned for Aleppo. are in fact being distributed in the countryside as our operations adapt with our partners around what is possible. Ecuador, earthquake way back that we were talking about even in the previous update. That's how long ago. More aftershocks have carried on. They've damaged the housing. So what we're doing now is we've put another team back in there to continue the good work with ProGAD. Les Stroud, the guy Survivor Man from the television program, he is the Canadian ambassador, one of the Canadian ambassadors for ShelterBox, and he has been out there to basically lend a hand and bring the spotlight of publicity onto what we're doing. We've moved on with phase 2 now, and we've got, as of this week, 2,841 households served. We should have a team out there, but because Haiti is absorbing so much and Iraq is absorbing so much of our time, that we're literally, we're out of bandwidth. So ProGAD have been trained, and we will dip in to ensure that it's all going in the right direction. And we're also doing recruitment at the moment, both volunteers in the near future and staff at the moment, so our capacity will increase. So we will be able to get back into the sweet spot of having more people on the deployments. Because as we were having the discussion in the ops room earlier, it was, okay, if our partners are absolutely fantastic, then we need to be there so we can learn from them and, take that information away and spread it through ShelterBox. If our partners are average, then we need to be there to just help, financially or physically, or, a bit of training or suggesting ideas. And if they're not great, then we need to be there to take a much more commanding training role. So we need to be there, or be there. So yeah, we do need to be there. Cameroon and Niger continue onwards as usual. 800 tents distributed so far this year in Cameroon, with another 512 being planned. But they're there in the process of distribution. As you would guess, as we spool up to send a team in to do the monitoring and evaluation of what we've done with our partners, the security situation is getting much worse. Niger, 202 boxes to remain to go out, and again the security situation is quite challenging in Niger at the moment. Of note, Philippines team has just returned about a month ago. The Philippines has become a much more difficult place to operate. They've become more national with their newly elected president, and it's got to be Filipinos, registered Filipino charities with Filipino locals. Otherwise you can't operate in the disaster relief. So we have sent a team out there to figure out how we can extend our operations out there to come under that blanket, which is possibly opening a new an office there, possibly training up more Filipinos to become that local agency, but with ShelterBox's training and financial and physical backing with the aid. So we'll report on that as the years go by. It's looking good. Other than that, we're just going to have to walk away from the Philippines, which is not something we want to do. Tanzania had an earthquake. We sent a team out to do assessments. What they found was that everybody was moving on, and it was bricks that were needed, which is a little bit outside of our remit without the tents. If we were doing tents and nothing else was happening, then that commitment to the beneficiary would extend, and we would do that. But just to come in and provide building material isn't really our thing. We've been asked coincidentally by the North Koreans for building material to respond to the flooding. Again, we're not going to be sending building materials to North Korea. However, on the first trip that we went out there, we formed very strong ties with the Korean Federation for the Protection of the Deaf, who are associated with the Protection of the Disabled Society, which is also associated with Handicap International. One of the most incredible people I've ever met on my ShelterBox travels was a man called Robert Grund, who is, from his bio, third generation deaf. And he's an absolute genius. He can lip read Korean, he can lip read German, he can lip read English, he can sign in 3 different languages. I didn't even know there were 3 different deaf sign languages. I'm just not clever enough to be deaf. He is an absolute genius, and he is the driving force behind possibly trying to get around all the political obstacles to get some of our aid into North Korea to help a deaf school. Now, we don't know whether we're going to be able to get around the restrictions, but that's something we can talk about in the next update. What's left is Niger and Cameroon monitoring team that we've briefly spoken about, and that is pretty much it. I hope you're still awake. If there's anything you need to know, just email me at alfe, that's alfie at shelterbox.org. And I hope that this has been of some use to you. Hopefully we will, honestly, I keep saying this every time, try and get a more regular update going. But sorry it's been so long. Hopefully we'll speak more sooner. Thank you very much.